Let me spill the tea, because what unfolded inside those royal walls wasn't just tension. It was a storm waiting to break. Picture this: a grand charity gala in London. The chandeliers sparkling, music drifting softly, guests in designer gowns sipping champagne. The cameras were rolling, flashing, catching every move. And right there, in the middle of it all, stood King Charles, immaculate in his signature navy suit, holding the spotlight as the royal figurehead. By his side, as always, Camilla, polished to perfection in a pale blue dress, smiling that practice smile. To the world, it looked picture perfect. A king and his queen consort, royal solidarity at its finest. But one pair of eyes wasn't fooled. Princess Anne, sitting at a quiet corner, her sharp gaze dissecting every movement, every glance, every single word. And then, it happened. Camilla leaned into Charles, that sweet, sugary smile plastered on her face. But what slipped out of her mouth wasn't gentle, wasn't supportive. It was a command, wrapped in silk. You do it. They like it better when you do it. Now, to the cameras, it looked like playful encouragement. But Anne saw the truth. The way Charles flinched, the hesitation, the unspoken question in his eyes, like a man waiting for permission. And then, obediently, the King of England stepped forward, ladle in hand, serving soup not like a monarch, but like a servant. Applause erupted. Cameras clicked furiously. The crowd adored the moment, but not Anne. She didn't clap, didn't smile, because to her this wasn't heartwarming. It was humiliating. Her brother, the king, reduced to a puppet. And Camilla? She was pulling the strings. And that wasn't even the worst of it. Just a week earlier, during a formal diplomatic reception with the Swedish royals at Buckingham Palace, Anne had witnessed something that left her reeling. The event had been flawless. Warm handshakes, dignified speeches, until Camilla stormed into the room. No greetings, no protocol. She walked straight to Charles, slapped his shoulder, and snapped, "Come on, Charles. That's enough." The entire hall froze. The king didn't argue, didn't protest. He just obeyed, like a scolded child, head down, shoulders bent, walking away as if his crown weighed nothing at all. For Anne, it was like a dagger to the heart. Her brother, once strong, proud, and fearless, was now broken. And worse, it wasn't even hidden anymore. Camilla's whispers had turned into open public commands. That night, Anne sat sleepless in her room at Kensington Palace, the moonlight spilling across her desk. An old leather notebook lay open, its pages already filled with her own observations, moments where Charles seemed off, decisions that screamed Camilla's influence, meetings where she spoke more than the king himself. And then, as if fate had been listening, her trusted aide delivered a thick, sealed envelope, marked only, for Princess Anne's eyes only. She opened it, and inside, cold, hard, evidence. It was no longer whispers or suspicions. It was fact. Camilla's sister, Annabelle, attending high-level palace meetings with zero official role, giving input on finances, interfering in renovation budgets. Even Camilla's daughter, Laura, sliding into private royal dinners seated where Windsor blood should have been. But the real gut punch? The financial records. Over $25 million in royal funds quietly funneled into expanding Camilla's private Wiltshire estate. Contracts, land acquisitions, priceless artwork from the royal collection, items that should have been in museums, shipped off to decorate her personal home like it was some private showroom. Anne's stomach turned. This wasn't ambition. This was invasion. Her jaw clenched, and in the silence of that candlelit room, she heard her late mother's words echo back to her. Queen Elizabeth's warning, "Protect your brother." The crown isn't just power, it's duty to history. And in that moment, Anne's resolve hardened like steel. The line had been crossed. Camilla wasn't just overstepping anymore. She was taking over. And Anne wasn't about to let the monarchy, her brother, or their mother's legacy crumble under Camilla's grip. So Anne made her decision. No more sitting quietly. No more tolerating Camilla's smug commands. This was war. The very next morning, Buckingham Palace was unnervingly still, the kind of silence that doesn't soothe but suffocates. Anne's heels echoed against the polished floors as she strode down the East Corridor, portraits of past monarchs glaring down like silent witnesses. And in her hand? Not a ceremonial letter, not an invitation, number. She carried a dossier, a weapon made not of bullets but of bank statements, transcripts, photographs, signatures. Evidence dripping with betrayal, each page another nail in Camilla's coffin. Anne knew she couldn't act alone. If she went head-to-head with Camilla, it would look paranoid, bitter, even treacherous. The monarchy buries conflict beneath smiles and protocol after all. But Anne, she was strategic, and she knew exactly who to trust. That night, She called on Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Now, Sophie wasn't flashy. She wasn't scandal-prone. Her reputation was clean, her loyalty unquestionable. She had the quiet strength of marble and the moral authority that came with her closeness to the late queen. Anne laid the dossier before her. Sophie read every page in silence, her face steady, her hands unmoving. But when she finally looked up, her words were sharp as glass. "We'll need more than evidence. We'll need her to convict herself, on record." And just like that, a plan was born. The trap would be set at something Camilla could never resist, a planning meeting for a royal charity. On the surface, innocent, routine. But behind the scenes, carefully designed. Senior advisors, protocol officers, and even a secretary from the Privy Council would be present. And Anne? She would stay hidden, watching. Sophie would lead. The stage was chosen, a grand but intimate room in the West Wing, sunlight pouring through velvet-draped windows, white roses in a porcelain vase at the center of the table, concealing a discreet recording device. Every detail planned to perfection. And when the day arrived, Camilla strutted in last. Of course she did. Emerald green dress, diamonds sparkling. That smug air like she already owned the place. She barely acknowledged Sophie's warm greeting before taking her seat. The meeting began with small talk, guest lists, budgets, logistics. But then Sophie slid in the bait. "We've prepared a draft of the king's speech. Would you like to add anything before he reviews it?" And just like that, Camilla took it. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even blink. "I'll decide. He'll speak as I tell him." She said it casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if she were the monarch, not the consort. The room froze. Advisors kept scribbling, but their hands shook. The council secretary stayed stone-faced, but his eyes darted, just once, toward the recording vase. The trap had sprung. And in the shadows, Anne listened. Headphones pressed tight, heart pounding. That one sentence was everything. Proof. Evidence. A confession. Camilla had just crowned herself, and in doing so, sealed her own downfall. 2 days later, the palace corridors pulsed with whispers. Few knew the truth, but the stakes couldn't have been higher. Princess Anne had done it. She had built the case, caught Camilla in her own words, and now it was time to strike. The Privy Council was summoned under the guise of a protocol matter. No big announcements, no press releases, just an emergency session cloaked in formality. When King Charles arrived, he looked exhausted, not physically, something deeper. His eyes carried the weight of silent years, the burden of a man too long under someone else's shadow. The council chamber was dim, its dark paneled walls lined with portraits of monarchs past, rulers who once commanded empires, kings and queens who never bent their heads. Tonight, those painted eyes seemed to watch Charles with quiet judgment. He sat at the head of the table, and across from him stood Princess Anne. In one hand, the dossier. In the other, a small remote. The silence was deafening as she pressed the button, and then Camilla's voice filled the chamber, cold, sharp, unmistakable. "I'll decide. He'll speak as I tell him." The words hung heavy in the air, slicing through centuries of royal protocol. No one shouted, no one gasped. The room didn't explode, it froze. Every breath held, every eye locked on Charles. And for the first time in a very, very long time, the King of England didn't look confused. He didn't look hesitant. He looked ashamed. That shame said it all. He knew. They all knew. The verdict didn't come with drama or thunder, it came quietly. But its weight shook the palace to its core. The council voted unanimously. Camilla was banned from attending strategic royal meetings. Any spending of royal funds required oversight, not just Charles's approval, but an independent board. And from now on, every public appearance by the queen consort would be accompanied by a council representative. An unspoken leash, invisible to the public but iron tight behind palace doors. No official statement to the press, just a dry line on the royal website about internal realignments for transparency. But behind the gates of Buckingham Palace, everyone knew the truth. And oh, did the whispers spread. Servants, guards, advisors. They spoke in hushed tones, but the atmosphere had shifted. Camilla's name no longer carried deference. It carried silence. Her once commanding presence now drew stiff nods and lowered eyes. But Charles, something remarkable began to happen. At the Veterans Memorial days later, he stood taller. His voice during the speech carried strength, clarity, no pauses, no glances for Camilla's approval. For the first time in months, he sounded like a king. The crowd noticed. The press noticed. Headlines hinted at a renewed Charles, a monarch stepping into his own. At a hospital charity event, he was different again. He bent to speak with children, joked with nurses, shook hands with real warmth. The stiffness was gone. The fog had lifted. And for once, he wasn't looking over his shoulder. The public didn't need an official statement. They could see it. The king was back. And Camilla still showed up, smiling for cameras, draped in emeralds. But the whispers, the icy commands, the control, gone. The leash was tight, and she knew it. At a glittering dinner in Clarence's house, the family laughed like old times. Camilla sat silent, her once dominant air muted. Across the table, Anne's calm presence said it all. Her victory needed no words. When the meal ended, Charles leaned close, his voice trembling with honesty. "You did what I couldn't. Thank you." Anne squeezed his hand. "No one humiliates the king, not while I'm breathing." Across the table, Camilla's smile cracked as she gripped her glass too hard. She knew it was over. Her reign behind the throne had ended. That night, Anne stood by the window, her mother's ring glinting. Queen Elizabeth's words echoed, "The crown is a duty to protect, not a prize to possess." And Anne had done just that. She hadn't just defended her brother, she defended the monarchy. Camilla's crown may remain, but now it comes with chains. Now it comes